Firstly, I'm Vensim Visperas from the Philippines and affiliated with the Philippine Christian University. So shown on screen is my ORCID. So by practice, I'm a CPA. I'm connected with also with schools, namely UANP for now as a full-time faculty. So apart from that, I'm also accredited for the practice of profession in accounting together with teaching. And lastly, as an accredited VIR tax agent. So, as a background, I took my Bachelor of Science in Accountancy and MBA at De La Salle University. And I took my Doctor of Philosophy in Business Management, major in International Accountancy and PCU. So, I believe most of us already have mentioned a lot of things about PCU, a bit of glimpse of the values of faith, character, and service that PCU is demonstrating among students. So firstly, we have here the title of my study, which is a comparative analysis of Grover's G-score, Springate's S-score, and Zimejowski's X-score models towards financial stability during disruptive times in the international airline industry. So for the background, so we all know what happened in recent times. So financial stability has been crucial for most institutions, especially those who were affected by the global pandemic. So the global pandemic has significantly impacted industries like tourism, particularly the air transportation sector. So the ability to assess or predict potential future events may aid organizations in anticipating what may lie ahead of them so that uncertainties or threats may be reduced if not completely avoided. So for the objectives, this study compares the three models score, namely Grover's G-score, Springate S-score, and Zimejowski X-score models to determine the relationship between these said scores with financial stability, which is specifically your debt to asset ratio in or among the international airline companies during disruptive times or simply the COVID-19 pandemic. So presented on the below as bullets are the comparisons of each score against the debt to asset ratio. As for the theoretical framework, this is aligned with the agency and signaling theory. So the conceptual framework rather is aligned with these two concepts. So firstly, agency theory is established by Stephen Ross and Barry Mitnick in the early 1970s, which refers to the agency relationship among principals and agents, where the former is evaluating the latter's performance. In business, management affects shareholders, and the agent's performance impacts benefits or risks. Meanwhile, the second theory, that is the basis of the conceptual framework, was introduced by Michael Spence in 1973, which suggests that a signal sender holds internal information that can act as a lighthouse, providing investors with insights into a company's future. This is followed by our conceptual framework or the basis of the study. So from the theoretical framework presented on the previous slide, now we present the conceptual framework. In this framework, rather, the performance is an indicator of how well a business is managed based on the company's contractual obligations with their stakeholders, which can also be impacted by external factors to business. So from the financial statements of companies in the international airline industry, the viability of the currents of financial distress will be assessed using the three prediction models. So we have here the Grover's G-score, Springate's S-score, and the Simijowski X-score. So from these models, it provides the respective scores as mentioned, and these will be evaluated whether a company is either in a healthy condition or in a potential bankruptcy. Then further, these prediction scores are then evaluated against the financial stability that is applicable to the industry. So based on previous research, the said leverage ratio by one of the studies it mentions DAR, which is the debt to asset ratio, as the factor that can justify whether a company is in a financial distress within this said industry. Then a comparison of which will be made against the prediction scores to determine accuracy level and further the error rates. Then lastly, below, the last variable as introduced is the moderating variable. So part of the paper is for moderating variable that may increase, decrease, or even reverse the relationship between the prediction scores, which is the independent variable, and the financial stability as the dependent variable. As to the methodology, so the result of this study determines the extent of the relationship of the prediction scores computed for each prediction model and the financial stability ratio as measured financial statement years of 2021 and 2022, which is after or within the period of the COVID-19 pandemic. So the prediction scores of each based on accuracy rates or accuracy level and the corresponding error rates for both the samples. So we have here 5 sample companies. So as baseline also for each of the model, please take note that is that if it is less than negative 0.02, a company is considered to be in potential bankruptcy. There is a gray area supposedly for the model, but apparently there was a study that says that 93% companies that belongs to or is within that gray area are considered in a healthy condition. Secondly, we have S-score under Springgate, which states that if 0.862, it is deemed as potential bankruptcy, while a higher rate than that, it is in a healthy condition. And lastly, for Semejowski, the baseline is if its score is greater than 0, it is otherwise it is considered in a healthy condition. Also note that will be done against the debt to asset ratio. And as a baseline for the debt to 77.176%, so meaning if it's less than or equal to this number one, and if it's higher, it is in a potential bankruptcy. The basis of which is from a study conducted among 17 airlines in a previous research. So moving on, here are the results and discussion for each of the model. So the Grover model, as you can see on the lower right, is has a formula of 1.65 of working capital to total assets plus 3.404 of earnings before interest and taxes over total assets and 0.016 of earnings after tax over total assets plus the coefficient of 0.057. So from this model, the prediction scores compared 40% accuracy among sample companies and a type 1 error of 60%, meaning the error potential bankruptcy, while DAR evaluated the companies as healthy. Then secondly, we have the benchmark companies, which were accurate by 50% and also a 50% error rate. So meanwhile, for 2022, we have 60% for samples or a 40% error rate and 100% for benchmark with 0% error rate. For Springgate, in 2021, it showed a 40% accuracy rate or a 60% error rate based on the formula as follows. So we have Springgate scores equal to 1.03 and 3.07 of earnings before interest and taxes over total assets and 0.66 of earnings before taxes and current liabilities. And lastly, the sales over total assets multiplied by 0.40, giving you the Springgate score. So for again, the samples, it's 40%. So if you notice, this is the same as 2021 results of Grover model. Meanwhile, for 2022, it dropped to 40% and 0% among sample companies and benchmark companies. So there was a decline in terms of accuracy rate for Springgate's scores among the companies of sample companies rather and your benchmark companies in 2022. Meanwhile, for Simijowski, it was consistent at 80% accurate among samples for both years 2021 and 2022 and 100% among benchmark companies, again, for the same 2 years. So this is based on the formula of X equals 4.30 minus 4.5 of earnings after taxes and total assets ratio plus 5.70 of total liabilities to total assets ratio and negative 0.004 of current assets to current liabilities ratio. So this has been consistent between 2021 and 2022. So again, this just shows you a summary for the three models as to accuracy rates and the corresponding error rates. So I will not be discussing it further. And this is the ranking. So I guess this is the more important thing, the results of this study. So in summary, the resulting accuracy levels among sample companies and benchmark companies for each prediction models are as follows. So we have here Simajowski being the highest in 2021 and 2022 with a rate of 80% and 100% consistent in both years, followed by your Grover G score or the Grover model with 40% and 50% accuracy, while in 2022 it improved to 60% and 100%. And lastly, we have Springgate at 40% accuracy for samples and 50% for benchmark in 2021, and 40% and 0% for 2022 among samples and benchmark companies. So what is the impact? So among sample and benchmark companies, the prediction scores of Grover model compared with the financial stability ratio DAR showed accuracy rate of 40% and 50% in 2021, while 60% and 100% in 2022. Thus, the prediction score do not significantly forecast financial stability using the Grover model. So this has been agreed to by the study of Promesti in 2023 and Supitriani in 2022. Meanwhile, for Springgate, the scores for 2021 is similar for the Grover G score model, while for 2022, it showed 40% and 0% accuracy. Thus, the prediction scores do not significantly forecast financial stability using this model. So this has been agreed to by the study of Promesti in 2023, Supitriani in 2022, and Hertina and Dari in 2022. And lastly, we have third model. So among the sample and benchmark companies, the prediction scores of Simijowski compared with the financial stability ratio DAR, consistent accuracy rate of 80% in 2021 and 2022 among sample companies and 100% among benchmark companies in both years. Thus, the prediction scores do significantly forecast financial stability using Simijowski model. This is again agreed to by the studies of Hertina and Dari, Saskia, and Salim in 2022 and 2021 respectively. So as a conclusion, the researcher recommends the use of Simijowski model as the best financial stability model for the international airline industry, as this model stresses the importance of debt in predicting health and condition, which is particular to your capital-intensive firms like airline companies. Furthermore, as part of the conceptual framework, the researcher identified working capital as the moderating variable that may increase, decrease, or even reverse the relationship between the prediction model scores and financial stability based on the analysis and actions taken by the benchmark companies. So just a brief background, the benchmark companies were Singapore Airlines and Qatar Airways. So for Singapore Airlines, there was a mandatory convertible bonds issued in 2021 and 2022, which had them availability rather of cash infusion of that amount. So with that, the Grover model improved from 0% to 50% accuracy. Springgate was not affected, but the ratios and the scores improved, while Simijowski improved from 0% accurate to 100% accuracy based on this particular infusion of cash. The same case with Qatar Airways, there was an infusion of cash coming from the government in the form of state and government bailout, amounting to about $2 billion. So this one showed the same scenario as what was experienced in Singapore Airlines. So furthermore, So effective management of working capital can therefore enhance financial stability among airline companies. And lastly, for the recommendations, so I recommend as a researcher to make use of other predictive models or prediction models apart from what has been provided in the study, namely Glover, Springate, and Simijowski. Also, the consideration of other financial stability ratio aside from debt to asset ratio. And lastly, the application of the study among other industries that were affected during the global pandemic, namely your manufacturing, building, construction, property and consumption, and lastly, pharmaceutical. So the last few slides shows the references that were used on my study. Thank you.
Thank you.